The Rizian laser atomized the bones in Amanda Sullivan's arm as she died protecting alien tech that would soon slaughter the Rizian Galactic Empire. "Help! We're under attack! They're killing us! It's the Rizians!" The panicked voice of Randy Sullivan's daughter screamed through the comm system of his tiny apartment. "We found something. They want it. Oh God, they shot Jenna. Her arm is gone. Send help." The transmission abruptly ended. Randy slammed his fist on the table, his jaw tight with rage. His little girl, the daughter he had failed in so many ways, needed him now more than ever, and he'd be damned if he was going to let her down again. He pulled out his old military contacts and made some calls, tracking down his former squad mates John Ripper Martinez and Mike Doc Cho. They'd served together in the Verulean Wars, and he knew they were the only ones he could trust for a mission like this. "Ripper, Doc, it's Randy. I need your help. It's my daughter. She's in trouble." Within hours, they had stolen a prototype stealth ship from a top-secret military facility and were racing towards the remote planet where Amanda's distress call had originated. As they hurtled through space, they intercepted Rizian communications that painted a grim picture. Amanda's scientific team had inadvertently activated an ancient weapon while studying some ruins. The Rizian Empire, fearing the potential shift in galactic power, had attacked and captured the team. Now they possessed both the scientists and the artifact, and were preparing to transport them back to Rizia Prime for study. Randy knew they had to act fast. They had 48 hours before the Rizian fleet arrived to collect their prisoners and the weapon. If they failed, not only would Amanda and her team likely face torture and execution, but the Rizians would gain an unassailable advantage in their bid for galactic domination. The stakes had never been higher. Randy and his old friends would have to infiltrate the heavily fortified Rizian base, rescue the captives, and destroy the artifact before it was too late. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. As the stealth ship sped through the void, Randy's thoughts turned to the past, to the missed birthdays, the broken promises, the years of estrangement. He had always put duty first, and his family had paid the price, but not this time. This time he would save his daughter or die trying. He checked his weapons, the familiar weight of the pulse rifle comforting in his hands. Beside him, Ripper and Doc did the same, their faces etched with grim determination. They were old soldiers, battle-scarred and weary, but they knew what had to be done. The ship dropped out of hyperspace near the planet's surface, its cloaking device engaging as it slipped past the Rizian patrols. They had made it this far undetected. Now came the hard part. Randy looked out at the alien landscape below, his heart hammering in his chest. Somewhere down there was his daughter, scared, alone, waiting for him, waiting for her father to finally be the hero she needed. He turned to his squadmates, his brothers in arms, and nodded. It was time. Time to infiltrate the base, time to save Amanda, time to make the Rizians pay for what they had done. Time for 3 old soldiers to remind the galaxy what happens when you mess with humanity's own. Randy looked into the faces of his friends one last time before they leaped into the fray. It was humanity's turn to unleash hell. The cloaked ship shuddered as an alert flashed on the console. A human vessel was under fire from a squadron of Rizian fighters not far from their position. Randy's hands tightened on the controls as he wrestled with the decision. Every second spent off course was a second that Amanda remained in enemy hands. But he knew he couldn't leave his fellow humans to die, not when he had the power to help. "A Ripper, Doc, buckle up, change of plans, we've got a ship to save," Randy growled, already plotting an intercept course. They came out of stealth right on top of the dogfight, the Rizian ships so focused on their prey that they didn't even see the torpedoes coming. The EMPs detonated in a cascade of blue light, shorting out the enemy fighters' systems and leaving them dead in space. Randy docked with the stricken vessel, the airlock hissing open to reveal a battered but defiant crew, led by a fierce-looking woman with captain's bars. "Captain Sarah Nakamura," she introduced herself briskly. "Thanks for the assist. Those Rizian bastards came out of nowhere." As her crew saw to repairs, Sarah briefed them on her mission. Her ship had been transporting an artifact from the same dig site as the ancient weapon when they were ambushed. From her description, it sounded like the two pieces of technology were meant to work together. Randy's mind raced as he processed the new intel. The Rizians were even more desperate than he'd thought if they were willing to attack a human ship this close to Terran space. And if they got their hands on both the weapon and the key to activate it. "All right, listen up," he said, a plan already forming. "We don't have much time. Ripper Doc, you'll infiltrate the base as planned and get Amanda and her team out. Meanwhile, the captain and I will hit the Rizian outpost on the far side of the planet, draw their attention. With any luck, they'll think we're the only rescue party and leave the base undermanned." Ripper grinned wolfishly. "Just like old times, eh, Randy?" Inside the base, alarms blared as Ripper and Doc crept through the corridors, the distraction team having done their job a little too well. Rizian soldiers rushed to their battle stations, leaving only a skeleton guard behind. They found Amanda and the others in a detention block, bruised and shaken but alive. Ripper made quick work of the locks with a shaped charge, and then they were running, Amanda's hand clutched tightly in Doc's as they retraced their steps. But their luck couldn't hold forever. As they neared the extraction point, a cold voice rang out behind them. "Leaving so soon?" It was Uko, the Rizian commander, flanked by a dozen of his best soldiers. Ripper and Doc pushed Amanda and the other scientists behind them, weapons raised. The firefight was brutal and bloody, energy bolts crisscrossing the corridor in a deadly light show. Doc cried out as a shot found its mark, and he crumpled to the ground. "Doc!" Ripper shouted, anguish and rage warring in his voice. He redoubled his efforts, his rifle spitting plasma at the advancing Rizians, determined to hold them off long enough for the others to escape. It was a final stand worthy of any soldier, but Ripper was only human, and Uko's men just kept coming. As his last energy cell ran dry, the Rizian commander stepped forward, a cruel smile on his lips. Uko raised his hand, and his guards leveled their weapons at the lone human warrior. Ripper stared defiantly back at the alien, a snarl on his blood-flecked lips. If this was to be his end, he would meet it on his feet, unbroken and unbowed. "Now, Terran," Uko hissed, savoring his triumph. "You will—" Randy's pulse rifle flashed as he and Sarah's crew poured fire into the Rizian outpost defenses. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, striking sparks from the alien metal. The humans were putting up a hell of a fight, but the Rizians kept coming, their numbers seeming endless. Randy ducked as a bolt nearly took his head off, the heat searing his cheek. "Fall back to the ship," he roared over the din of battle. "We can't hold them here." They fought a desperate rearguard action, leapfrogging from cover to cover as they made their way back to the airlock. But even as they retreated, Randy's mind raced. They couldn't leave, not without completing their mission, not without saving Amanda. An idea struck him, reckless and desperate. He turned to Sarah, his eyes blazing. "Cover me," he said. "I'm going to take that command ship." Before she could protest, he was moving, sprinting across the open ground towards the looming Rizian vessel. Plasma bolts chased him, but he didn't slow, his focus absolute. He reached the enemy airlock, his breaching charges already in hand. The explosions ripped through the hull and he was inside, rifle up and ready. Rizian soldiers swarmed to meet him, but Randy was a whirlwind of destruction, his weapon spitting death with every trigger pull. He fought his way to the bridge, leaving a trail of broken alien bodies in his wake. The doors to the command center hissed open, and Randy found himself face to face with Zorak, the Rizian captain. The alien was a towering brute, his scales gleaming under the harsh lights. "Foolish human," Zorak sneered. "You dare to challenge me on my own ship?" Randy didn't waste breath on a reply. He lunged forward, rifle blazing, but Zorak was fast, inhumanly so. The Rizian dodged the shots and closed the distance in a heartbeat, his claws raking across Randy's armor. They crashed together in a tangle of limbs, smashing control consoles and equipment as they grappled. Randy felt the alien's hot breath on his face, saw the gleam of fangs as Zorak tried to tear out his throat. But Randy was a veteran of 100 battles, and he gave as good as he got. His fists slammed into Zorak's scales, his kicks cracking ribs. They were locked in a primal struggle, two alphas fighting for dominance. Suddenly Randy's calm crackled to life. It was Amanda, her voice shaking with grief and fear. "Dad," she sobbed, "it's Ripper. He's gone. He sacrificed himself to destroy the base and the prototypes, but he bought us time to escape with the weapon." Randy felt the words like a physical blow, his heart clenching in his chest. Ripper, his brother, his friend, gone. The pain mixed with the rage, a volatile cocktail that surged through his veins. With a roar of anguish and fury, Randy unleashed everything he had on Zorak. His fists pummeled the Rizian's face, his kicks shattered bone. The alien tried to fight back, but Randy was relentless, unstoppable. Finally, with a sickening crunch, Zorak fell, his neck snapped by a savage twist. Randy stood over the corpse, chest heaving, blood dripping from his knuckles. He staggered to the command chair and sat heavily, his hands already flying over the controls. He had the ship now, and with it, a chance to turn the tide, a chance to make the Rizians pay for what they had taken from him. Seated in the command chair of the captured Rizian ship, Randy's hands danced across the control panel. Outside the view screen, the outpost erupted in flames as he unleashed a barrage from the vessel's advanced weapons. Rizian fighters scrambled to engage, but they were no match for the firepower now at Randy's fingertips. One by one they winked out of existence, reduced to clouds of shrapnel. The remaining ground forces scattered, their resolve crumbling in the face of this unexpected onslaught. "Set a course for Amanda's coordinates," Randy ordered, his voice hard. "We're getting my daughter back." But as the ship accelerated away from the devastation, Sarah stepped forward, her expression grave. "Randy, wait. There's something you need to know about the artifact my crew was transporting." He looked at her sharply. What is it?" She took a deep breath. "It's not just a key component of the weapon. It's a beacon designed to summon a long-lost human fleet from the depths of space." Randy's eyes widened. A human fleet hidden among the stars. The implications were staggering. With that kind of firepower at their disposal, they could turn the tide against the Rizians once and for all. But Sarah wasn't finished. Activating the beacon would mean revealing humanity's hidden past, she warned. It could escalate the conflict on a galactic scale. Are we ready for that? Randy hesitated, torn between his desire for victory and the weight of responsibility. But before he could respond, the ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace. On the view screen, Amanda's location came into focus, and the sight that greeted them was one of chaos. Tuco, somehow still alive despite the destruction of the base, had Amanda and her team pinned down. The Rizian commander was a force of nature, his weapons spitting plasma as he advanced on their position. "No!" Randy shouted, already running for the airlock. He hit the ground at a sprint, pulse rifle in hand, Sarah and her crew close behind. He saw Uko turn, saw the flash of recognition and hate in the alien's eyes. The Rizian snarled, abandoning his assault on Amanda to charge at Randy. They met in a clash of titans, their weapons forgotten as they grappled in the dirt. Uko was strong, his muscles enhanced by Rizian biotech, but Randy's fury was a tangible force. They traded blows that would have shattered concrete, their armor cracking under the onslaught. "Your daughter will die screaming," Uko hissed, his claws raking across Randy's chest. "And then I will mount your head on my ship as a trophy." Randy roared, a sound of primal rage, and surged forward. His fists slammed into Uko's face, the alien's scales shattering under the impact. Uko staggered, and Randy pressed his advantage, raining down blows like an avalanche. Uko's head snapped back, ichor spraying from his shattered jaw. He crumpled, his cybernetic implants sparking and flickering. Randy stood over him, chest heaving, his knuckles raw and bloody. The Rizian coughed, a wet, hacking sound. "You think you've won, human," he gurgled. "The Empire already knows of your precious beacon. They are coming for it, and they will not stop until it is theirs." Randy's blood ran cold. He looked to Sarah, saw the same realization in her eyes. The beacon was no longer just a symbol of hope. It was a ticking clock. He turned to Amanda, his gaze fierce. "Get your team to the ship, we're leaving." As they hurried to obey, Randy's mind raced. The beacon could save humanity, but at what cost? Was he willing to gamble the future on an ancient legacy? He looked down at Uko's broken form, the weight of the galaxy pressing down on his shoulders. It was time to make a choice. Randy stared down at the beacon, the weight of the decision pressing on his shoulders like a physical force. He glanced over at Sarah, seeing the same conflict in her eyes. The Rizian Empire would never stop hunting them, never stop until they had crushed humanity beneath their boot. There was only one choice. "Do it," Randy said, his voice hard as steel. "Activate the beacon." Sarah nodded grimly, her fingers flying over the controls. The beacon pulsed, a wave of energy rippling out into the void. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a flash of light, brighter than a supernova, erupted in the distance. Randy shielded his eyes, squinting against the glare. As the light faded, he saw them, thousands of ships, their hulls gleaming in the starlight. The insignia of the ancient human fleet, a symbol lost to history, emblazoned on their sides. A cheer went up from Sarah's crew as the realization hit them. They weren't alone anymore. Humanity had a fighting chance. But the Rizians weren't going down without a fight. Their fleet, still vastly outnumbering the human ships, surged forward, weapons blazing. The void lit up with the fire of 1,000 suns as the two armadas clashed. Randy watched the battle unfold, his heart pounding. The human ships were more advanced, their technology centuries ahead of the Rizians, but the enemy had numbers on their side. For every Rizian ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Suddenly alarms blared on the bridge. "Rizian boarding parties have breached the hull," Sarah shouted over the din. Randy was already moving, pulse rifle in hand. "Protect the artifact," he ordered. "I'll handle this." He raced through the corridors, the sound of plasma fire and screams echoing off the walls. He burst into the cargo hold, and his blood ran cold. Amanda stood over the ancient weapon, a Rizian blaster in her hands. She was firing at the boarders, her shots precise and deadly. But there were too many of them, their return fire scorching the air around her. Randy leapt into the fray, his rifle spitting death. He fought his way to Amanda's side, the two of them standing back to back as they held off the enemy. "Just like old times, eh, Dad?" Amanda quipped, her voice strained. Randy's heart swelled with pride even as it ached with fear, his little girl all grown up and fighting for her life. A bolt sizzled past his ear, jolting him back to the present. He redoubled his efforts, pouring every ounce of skill and fury into his shots. But the Rizians kept coming, a relentless tide of scales and claws. And then Amanda screamed, a sound that cut through the chaos like a knife. Randy whirled just in time to see her fall, a smoking hole in her chest. "No!" The cry tore from his throat, raw and primal. He caught her before she hit the ground, cradling her in his arms. Amanda looked up at him, her eyes already starting to glaze. "Dad," she whispered, her voice thick with pain. I'm sorry. For everything." Randy shook his head, tears blurring his vision. "Don't," he choked out. "Don't you dare apologize. I'm the one who's sorry. I should have been there for you. I should have—" She reached up, her hand trembling as she touched his cheek. "You're here now," she said softly. "That's all that matters." Her hand fell away, her eyes drifting shut. Randy clutched her to his chest, a howl of anguish ripping from his lungs. The Rizians, seeing their chance, surged forward, but Randy was beyond caring. He laid Amanda down gently, his fingers brushing her hair back from her face. Then he stood, his rifle in his hands, his eyes blazing with a cold, implacable fury. The Rizians faltered, their advance slowing. Randy stalked towards them, a grim spectre of vengeance. He fired as he walked, each shot finding its mark with ruthless precision. The boarders fell before him, their bodies piling up in his wake. By the time he reached the airlock, the cargo hold was silent, the floor slick with Rizian blood. Randy stood among the corpses, his chest heaving, his armor scorched and dented. He looked back at Amanda's still form, a fresh wave of grief crashing over him, but there was no time to mourn, not yet. The battle still raged outside, the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. Randy turned and strode towards the bridge, his steps heavy with purpose. He had a war to win, a daughter to avenge, and he would not rest until the Rizians had paid for what they had done. The war room was in chaos, voices raised in anger and accusation. Randy sat at the head of the table, his face a mask of stone as he watched the arguing factions. "The Rizians are broken," one admiral shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "We should press the attack, wipe them out once and for all." "And become no better than them," another countered. "We fought for our survival, not conquest." Randy held up a hand, silencing the room. "Enough," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "We've all lost people to this war. Friends, family, children." His gaze grew distant for a moment, the pain still raw and fresh. "But if we let our grief turn to hate, if we become the very thing we fought against, then their deaths will have been for nothing." He stood, his presence commanding the room. "We have a chance here, a chance to build something better, a future where our children don't have to live in fear of the next attack, the next war." Randy looked around the table, meeting each set of eyes in turn. It won't be easy. There will be those who want revenge, who think might makes right. But we have to be better than that. We have to find a way to coexist, to forge a lasting peace. He thought of Amanda, of her fierce determination and unwavering moral compass. She had always seen the best in people, always believed that a better world was possible. "I won't lie to you," Randy continued. "The path ahead will be hard. There will be setbacks, obstacles, those who refuse to let go of the past. But we owe it to those we've lost to keep trying, to keep fighting for that better tomorrow." He walked to the window, staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there the Rizian homeworld spun, its people licking their wounds and nursing their hate. It would be so easy to give in to the darkness, to let the cycle of violence continue. But Randy refused to let that be his legacy, refused to let that be humanity's legacy. They had a chance to break the wheel, to steer a new course. It wouldn't happen overnight. Trust would have to be rebuilt, old wounds healed. But Randy was in it for the long haul. He owed Amanda that much. He turned back to the room, his resolve hardened into an unbreakable core. "We've got a lot of work to do," he said, his voice ringing with determination. "Let's get started." You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.